Hi, and welcome to another episode of Piano TV. So today we are going to learn the piece Für Elise by Beethoven, which is basically like to piano what Stairway to Heaven to guitar is. It's kind of like the piece to learn. Most people seem to know it. Most people seem to want to learn it, and it's basically a rite of passage. So let's do it now. Für Elise can be translated into English, and it means for Elise. It's German, and I know it's a really rough translation because it's one letter different. I know that was really hard, but I had to just help you out there. And it's by Ludwig van Beethoven, who I've done a previous video on all about his life and times. So click over there and you can learn more about him as well. He's kind of a cool cat. So even though this piece is super famous and we all know it, it was only published in 1867, which, is clearly a long time ago. But that's 40 years after Beethoven died. So it's not like this was a big hit back in his heyday. It wasn't at all, which is, I guess, kind of unfortunate. It's also worth noting that the part we're all familiar with, the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, I had to do air piano for that, apparently. Apparently my air piano was, like, way up here. Anyways, where am I going with that? Apparently that part we all know is only the very first page of the piece, and there's actually quite a bit more to it, and it's really difficult. So the first page is, I think, okay for beginners, but yeah, everything past that point is going to be a little too advanced, but you should still listen to it because it's really awesome. So as usual, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to play through the piece so you can hear it and kind of see how it all corresponds with music. Now, this is my arrangement of it. All the notes and all the rhythm is the same, but I changed the 16th notes to 8th notes and the time signature just to make it more familiar to stuff we worked on already. Everything else, like, it's exactly the same, so I didn't like alter any notes or anything wild like that. So let's get to it. So first of all, let's take a look at the song structure. So you'll see we have a first ending, second ending situation at the beginning here. So how that's going to work, just really quickly, is you're going to play through the first line and the second line. Then when you get to that first ending, you hit the repeat dots, you bounce back to the beginning. You play through, and then the second time around, you don't play the first ending because it's the second time, so you play the second ending. And then if we skim a little bit further down the page, there's another very similar situation where once you get here, you've got a first ending, the repeat dots bounce you back here. Those repeat dots kind of like locks in that section. And then the second time you play through, and then you skip the first ending, and then you finish on the second ending. Now let's do a little bit of an analysis on the key signature here. So if you're a little lost on how to tell the difference between major and minor keys, just be sure to check out the previous video where we talked about that, and we'll link that below just so you know what's what. But let's take a look here. So there's no sharps and flats. So that's telling us Für Elise is either in C major or A minor. Okay, so let's look at the first notes. It's kind of hard to tell. Well, we'll get into these specifics later, but the first note's an E, and there's an E in both of these chords. So let's move on to the left hand, where what we got here, we got an A, an E, and an A. So there's your biggest clue, and then the right hand is doing a C and an E and an A. These are all letters of an A minor chord. So it's pretty safe to assume that Für Elise is in the key of A minor. This piece also has some damper pedal action, so if you remember how to read this, when you see the word ped, That's telling you that you press your foot down and then you hold all the way through, and then this is your little lift. So that's when you lift your foot, and then this is where you clunk your foot back down. And again, this is something I'll link to below the pedal video, just if you're a little bit confused on how to do that. So these symbols are sharps, which means instead of just playing a regular D, you play the note that's just slightly above D. And this symbol here is called a natural. And this means you're not playing a D sharp anymore. You're going back to the basics. You're just playing a regular D. So you'll see sharps and naturals kind of scattered throughout this piece. And one more detail I want to talk about that makes this rather difficult is that there's a lot of wide leaps in the left hand especially. So if you look over here, notice that you have a bass E that jumps to an E and then a G sharp. So that's an octave leap. So we'll look at that on the keyboard. One difficult aspect of this piece are the wide leaps in the left hand. So I think it's really worthwhile to just isolate hand by hand. I say this every time we learn a song, but I really do think it works. So the main left hand pattern will go from this A, E, A to E, E, G sharp. So it's this E to G sharp that takes the most movement. And that's why it's important, since this is a full octave, it's eight notes. You really do want to use your pinky and your thumb and then do a crossover to get to that G sharp. So since these patterns are used through most of the song, what I would do is just kind of go back and forth, practicing that until it becomes more natural. And then there are the same wide leaps in the third line of the song when it switches to kind of that like randomly happier sounding part. And then there you have like a 3 octave jump, so E to E to E, and we'll talk about that in a second. So I'll just link the music above so you can kind of see the sheet music as I play this part. But in the third line at the very end, you have this whole progression where it's just a whole bunch of E's walking up the keyboard. And it can be a little bit difficult to read because the left hand switches to the treble clef halfway through and there's a lot of ledger lines. But basically, when you start that big E pattern, you're starting from this low E and then just essentially moving forward. So yeah, just pay attention to your keyboard geography that you're watching for where all the E's go. I'll show you that in slow motion so you can see. So the first 3 E's in the left hand. So it's important to play that with your pinky and thumb for the wide leap. And then your finger number 2 can cross over. Now here's where you have some overlap. Your right hand takes over the next 2 E's. So this one is played twice. And then your left hand plays the exact same notes that your right hand just plays. So again, some overlap. This is actually, I find this part easier to just play from memory as opposed to trying to like sight read it as you go. So just build in your memory 1 E at a time, and I think that'll make it a lot easier. So here we go. And then the last 2, the E is overlapping with the thumb, and you're going up to that highest octave. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Really take your time in that part to make sure all your E's are going in the right spot. And just a quick note of the Italian in the piece, poco, whoa, I just drew that line right through it. Poco moto is, poco is a little, and moto is motion or movement. So you can think of this as saying a little movement, which is it seems like it's kind of a vague marking. You're not going to play it really fast and rapidly and like kind of furious passion. So just a little bit of that energy, a little bit of that movement, but like not overboard. That's how I would interpret it. I really hope you enjoyed learning this piece, and I wish you much luck doing it. It isn't the easiest, but it definitely is doable if you spend a lot of time on it and let it have its day in the sun. What am I getting at there? Anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you want to keep in touch, you can subscribe and check out the blog pianotv.net where all this stuff goes, and I like to post links and videos and things like that. All right, toodaloo. Oh, hi. Oh, what a sad little hungry meow.